What's going on, family? Will Roundtree here, and I'm going to teach you how to invest in real estate without using your own money. It may sound far-fetched, but once I break it down and I actually show you how I bought my very first investment property without my own money, it may blow your mind. The first time I actually heard this concept was with Robert Kiyosaki. Robert Kiyosaki changed the way I look at business. Robert Kiyosaki changed the way I look at real estate. Robert Kiyosaki changed the way how I was able to actually position myself and look at wealth. But now, before we go there, I know you may be thinking, well, Will, you can just wholesale and sell real estate without your own money, but that's not investing. See, when you wholesale, you don't own the property. You're flipping the contract. Essentially, I'm getting the rights to the house. I have a contract and I sell the rights to this house on this contract to said investor. But what I'm going to show you is how to actually acquire the property, make money, collect rents from the property, refinance it tax-free, and continue to build wealth. And you can actually rinse and repeat this cycle as many times as you would like. See, this is the power of debt. In a previous video, I talked about utilizing what is called structured debt. This is where I take debt, i.e. credit, go and purchase debt, i.e. the property. They make money and service the debt on the credit card debt as well as on the mortgage. That is essentially the textbook equation of how to create wealth. You use debt to buy debt. The debt is going to pay off all the debt, and then it's going to make you money, and then you live off the residuals. You just have to calculate what your ROI is, which stands for return on investment. About 10 years ago, I remember being on YouTube and I saw a video with Robert Kiyosaki. For those who do not know who Robert Kiyosaki is, he is the author of the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, where he talked about how his rich dad actually taught him all the things that he needed to know, and his poor dad also taught him all the things that he needed to know, and he took the best of both worlds and he became ultimately who we know here today. Now, he mentioned something that changed my life. He said how he got into real estate. Obviously, he joined a program, but more importantly, he talked about how he needed to get into sales. If you want to make a lot of money, you got to get into sales. Excuse me, his rich dad told him he got to get into sales. So he got into sales, and one of those was in real estate. Here's the thing that I've learned just about the path of least resistance to getting the results you want. When I learned that 90+% of people who are multi-millionaires own a business, own real estate, or own both, I knew I had to be a part of both, because now I can increase my odds on being financially successful at whatever degree I wanted to become successful at financially. I remember listening to an interview with Robert Kiyosaki at the time. He said his mentor in real estate told him he had to make at least 100 calls, and then he finally found a property. The property was selling for $18,000, and he knew as an investment property he had to come to the table with at least $20,000 down. Just for the sake of math, let's round up and say the property was $20,000, okay? Because I don't want y'all saying, Will, your math is off. Look, this is an example. Okay, so the property was $20,000, and he needed to come up with at least 20% down, which is $4,000. You guys may want to write this down. So now, he didn't have $4,000 in his bank account. He didn't have $4,000 in his pocket, or whatever the case may be, but he said he had credit. So what he did was he actually took his credit card and utilized the credit card for the down payment of the $4,000, because he knew the bank was going to finance the other 80%. And so now he had an asset that was producing income, and not only did it pay the mortgage of the 80% that the bank financed, it also serviced the debt on the credit card payment of the $4,000. And now he has an income producing asset that is going to pay him forever. And when I heard that, I literally wanted to throw my computer off the desk because I was so excited. I probably even flipped the table over. I don't know.
Okay, let's get this started.
But all I do know is that I now learned something that forever changed the course of how I did business, especially when it came to real estate. Here's why I think a lot of us don't get into real estate. We'll see a property, and let's just say, for the sake of math, the purchase price is $100,000. We assume we have to literally have access to $100,000. And then we get to thinking about how long it could potentially take you to save $100,000. So first of all, your first mistake is you assume you have to pay cash for the property. People don't pay cash for properties, they go borrow it. This is why people partner with hedge funds. This is why wealthy people raise money to buy hotels. They don't pay cash. Now, you may also learn that, okay, I don't have to pay cash, or I don't need the whole 100,000. I just have to come to the table again for an investment property with a minimum of 20% down. You may scratch your head and say, well, Will, I don't have access to $20,000. The most I've ever saved in my bank account was $700.
True story.
Well, at least I know that's the most I ever saved back in the day. I don't know how much you saved, but at one point I couldn't save over $700. I don't know. Maybe I was bad with money. But after hearing that interview, I then started to learn what the power of credit is. We've often heard the term power of credit, but I think we really don't know what that means.
Credit.
When we think about the power of credit, I think that we just think about purchasing power to buy a primary residency. We think about purchasing power of being able to go buy a vehicle and you don't necessarily have to put money down. We think about purchasing power with how much we can get in credit cards. When we hear about purchasing power, we just think of all of the consumer things that we potentially can go out there and do. We don't think about the word or the term leveraging our credit. You may want to write that down. See, so when I heard that video with Robert Kiyosaki, I knew that I could leverage my credit to now become an investor. In the book Cash Flow Quadrant, he talks about that there's 4 quadrants when it comes to the economics of most individuals. You have the E quadrant, which you're an employee. At an employee level, you're taxed at the highest rate. Then you have the S quadrant, which is self-employed. Essentially, you bought a job. That's what self-employed means, but you're still taxed at a high level. Then you have the B quadrant, business owner. You can mitigate some of your tax liability, but then ultimately the goal is to get to the I quadrant, which is an investor, which pays the least amount in taxes, but then they also understand how to make their money make them money. I said in a previous video, your dollars you want to look at as an employee. So whether you have $1 or $20, you either have 1 employee or 20 employees. And that's how investors look at money. That's how investors look at debt. That's how investors leverage their credit. So as an investor, unlike the employee or the self-employed, for every dollar you go out there and make, you're taxed on it. Every time you make $1, you only bring home maybe 70 to 60 cents. Why is that? Because you're being taxed. So outside of your day-to-day expenses, how much harder would it be to save that $20,000 to purchase that investment property? Now, on top of your regular life, you're trying to save $20,000 from off of an income that you're barely surviving on just in your real life, in your real expenses, in your real bills. This is why we have to change the way we think. This is why I came up with the 4-step Roundtree methodology, where I talk about step 1 being mindset, step 2 is understanding credit, step 3 is understanding financing and the cost of money, and step 4 is asset building, which in the I quadrant is asset building. Okay, so now as an employee, trying to save this $20,000 is going to be almost impossible, especially in the Black community where over 50+% of Black households have less than $500 in savings. So what's the likelihood of you being able to save $20,000? I'll wait.
We're still waiting?
Yeah. So with that being said, this is why this concept that I talk about in leveraging credit has been so powerful, and how it's helped to be able to create so many successful people in the Black and minority communities, and being able to level the playing field when it comes to being an investor or being in the I quadrant. So now take person A, who is an employee, they work their 9 to 5. What's the likelihood of them saving the $20,000? And it can be slim to none. Versus knowing the power of leveraging credit. When you have good credit, you have a business entity. Now I can go to the bank and get access to unlimited business funding, which I talked about in a previous video, and be able to get access to the capital that I need to come up with this $20,000. So now I already know, as long as I have good credit, I have a business entity. Let's say I go to Bank A and get access to a line of credit for $50,000. The thing about revolving credit is I don't have to pay back against the $50,000 until I actually utilize it. Well, in this case, I only need $20,000 for the down payment for the house that's $100,000. So I'm only paying back against the $20,000. Think about it. So now I can use this $20,000, put it towards this investment property that's $100,000. The bank is going to finance the other 80%. The credit card paid for the 20%, and then the rents that I've collected, because I've already calculated how much I can potentially collect from this property. I've calculated how much the money is going to cost me, and then I make sure that I find a property that's going to pay me above what my debt servicing is, or how much it's going to cost the credit card and the mortgage. And then I see that it's going to make me money after I pay all of my debt and expenses and service the debt. That is how you become wealthy. This is how you purchase your first investment property without any money out of your pocket. But now, let me tell you what the formula for this recipe is. First, you got to have good credit. There's no way around it. I don't care what those credit or real estate or financial or business funding gurus tell you. Now, can you get into real estate sales as a wholesaler without having good credit? Yes, you can, but you're going to have to work a lot harder. Now, can you do things like a subject to where you can get into a property with no money down? Yes, you can. But do you have the work ethic to make 10,000 calls to find those 2 properties to get 1 yes? Most people don't. So again, I believe in taking the path of least resistance and positioning myself and making sure I have great credit. I'm going to go out there and set up a business entity, okay, whether it's an LLC, a corporation, converting those to an S Corp, whatever the case may be. And then I know once those things are in position, I can go to as many banks in North America and get access to unlimited funding for that business entity. So now, after I've calculated it, what my upfront cost is going to be to get those things in position, I now know that all I have to do is find a property that is going to be able to service the mortgage and the debt that it took for me to come up with the down payment. See, this is why I say that getting into real estate investing or being a successful investor, whether it's real estate or business, it's really 5th grade math. And in 5th grade math, we already know that 5 plus 5 is 10. And so when I'm looking at real estate, if my debt servicing is $700, I just have to find a property that's going to pay me $1,000, and then I'll reverse engineer that. But here's why a lot of people don't ever get off the porch into becoming that first-time investor. They see the purchase price and they start scratching their head thinking they got to save the money. They see the purchase price and then they learn that they can actually leverage the bank's money, but they don't want to fix their credit. They're trying to cut corners. See, let me tell you something. Cutting corners is expensive. It's expensive either on the front end or it's expensive on the back end. See, I can cut the corners, but it may cost me up front. And I'm okay with that because I know on the back end, it's smooth sailing. Or you can cut corners up front. It's going to cost you on the back end. And like my grandmother used to say, you do it right or you pay twice.
100%.
So it's going to be that much more expensive on the back end because you decided to cut corners on the front end. And so when it comes to real estate investing, if you want to cut the corners, pay the price to get in position. That's the corner you cut. Yeah, you can go out there and learn everything by making mistakes and bumping your head, but that's going to be expensive. Yes, you may have to go out there and leverage and get business funding, and there's an opportunity cost to get into business funding if you don't know how to do it on your own. You may not know how to speak to underwriters. You may not know how to fill out credit application. Your penmanship may look bad.
I have good penmanship.
You'd be surprised how many credit card applications look bad because their L's look like T's. I don't know how you make it upside down, but all I know, a lot of people credit card applications get denied so that they can get the proper funding to invest in that first investment property. So with that being said, just imagine you being in a position, you don't have access to a lot of liquid money in your bank account. You don't have any assets that you can borrow against, but you have great credit. You have a business. You can go to any bank or as many banks in North America and borrow the money, borrow the debt, make sure that the debt is structured. You've already calculated what the money is going to cost you. You're going to find a property that's going to pay you said rent that it can service the debt. And imagine how many times you can do that. I have this saying, I would do that all day and every day and twice on Sundays if they allow me to. And that's the power of overstanding credit. That's the power of leveraging credit. That's the power of leveraging OPM. And all of that is from the concept that I learned from Robert Kiyosaki years ago. So this isn't something that Will Roundtree came up with, although I would love to take all of the credit. And if you get your first property, I would love for you to give me the credit. But it's not something that I invented. I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. Again, I believe in taking the path of least resistance to wealth building. And this is one of the quickest paths. And real estate is one of the easiest entry points because I just showed you how to get into your first investment property without using any of your own money. So if you like more content like this, please make sure you like, comment, follow, and share. Make sure you click the link below to learn more information about my real estate group coaching program, because these are the concepts that I teach a lot of my mentees. And even bigger, I teach you how to eliminate the guesswork and show you how to build an actual real estate business. So with that being said, I appreciate you viewing this video. Hopefully you've learned something that you can go out there and implement and execute today. And more importantly, I'll see you at the top.